Hello and welcome to another episode of Noah's Snark. I'm Atheist Josephina, aka AJV. If there's one thing common to almost all theistic apologists, it's that they almost exclusively operate on presuppositions. Now, what's a presupposition? It's something assumed before beginning a line of argument or course of action. Take, for example, the existence of the universe. When a person asks, why does the universe exist, and that person's a believer in the Abrahamic God, the answer is automatically because God created it, and there's no consideration of any other possibility. They've been told God created the universe, that assertion aligns with their beliefs, so that's the end of the story. God did it. Why do believers not consider any other possibilities? Well, because of cognitive biases mostly, but what other possibilities are there for the universe's existence? Now, maybe God did do it, maybe a bunch of gods did it, maybe it was birthed out of a quantum fluctuation in a quantum field, or resulted from a collision of cosmic membranes. Maybe it always existed in one form or another and goes through cyclical changes. We really don't know. The scientific evidence strongly implies the universe was once much smaller than it is, but this idea could still be wrong, and I consider it to be the height of human arrogance to think we, as humans, do know the origin of the universe at this point in our cognitive development and collection of scientific data. It's doubly arrogant to simply say, God did it, with no explanation for how that process of creating a universe might work. But that's how presuppositions work. In this case, presupposing the ability to create a universe is beyond us, and therefore requires infinite knowledge and power. A chain of reasoning in which the conclusion simply doesn't follow from the premise. Presuppositions dismiss thinking about anything deeply, and there is, of course, a good reason for the human brain to do this. From an evolutionary perspective, it saves us from an expenditure of energy that could be used to run from, say, a lion in prehistory. Now, that might not be an issue anymore, and most people consume an excess of calories these days, but the evolutionary adaptation to conserve energy when it's convenient hasn't exactly gone extinct within us. So today, what I'd like to do is ask any given believer to think in a particular way. I'm going to pose some questions to believers and ask them to think about alternative answers to my questions, answers that go beyond what might be chalked up to a believer's faith, or a God of the Gaps explanation, where a God of the Gaps explanation, if you, the listener, doesn't already know, is inserting God as an explanation for a phenomenon because you can't think of or consider any other explanation. For example, what's the best explanation for the existence of modern human beings? Did the Abrahamic God create human beings? I don't think so, but I'm willing to hear ideas about how God might have done this. Was it simply magic? I'm willing to believe this if the explanation can be replicated. But there's no evidence of this ever happening with any animal, so what might an alternative explanation be? I know evangelicals aren't fond of the naturalistic explanation of evolution, so as an exercise, let's throw that out too. What other explanations could there be for the existence of human beings? In Norse mythology, the first humans, Ask and Embla, were created from trees found on a beach by several of the gods, Odin among them, who breathed life into them and gave them consciousness, senses, and their outward appearance. In Hinduism, human creation is often attributed to Lord Brahma, the creator god. Now, I know Christians won't consider these other religious explanations because they arrogantly assume their mythology is the right one, but as evangelical Christians are fond of wanting to so-called teach the controversy of creationism as opposed to evolution in the classroom, why not teach these other controversial ideas? We all know the answer to that, so let's throw out all mythological explanations as well as evolution. What else could possibly explain human existence? In philosophy, Solipsism is the position that one's own mind is all that exists for sure, and most likely everything and everyone else are constructs of one's mind. People other than yourself, or I should say myself, are figments of my imagination. Perhaps humanity is the result of a vast experiment conducted by a superintelligent AI far beyond our current understanding. This AI may have created us as part of a process to understand consciousness, free will, or creativity, and maybe we're just pawns in its quest for self-improvement or self-understanding. Maybe we were created by alien beings who themselves are beings of energy and not life like we know it. Now, I'm barely scratching the surface of other possible answers, or they don't even have to be possible answers. I'm just searching for other answers at this point. So there's a lot of possibilities to consider, and sure, some may seem more plausible than others, but then you need to justify why. This requires a lot of thinking, a lot of calorie expenditure by the brain, and people generally don't like to do that. But we're going to keep trying anyway. Stay with me if you can while I ask some more questions. I'm not going to give you my take. I'm going to ask you, the listener, to think beyond any presuppositions you might have, and 1, throw out any notion that a God is involved, and 2, throw out any prevailing scientific explanation. For the questions asked, maybe pick just one of them and dwell on it, and see what answers come to mind regarding these questions. And keep in mind, the answer doesn't have to be factual or true. Just try to answer the question like you don't know anything about the world. Now, any given answer you can come up with will either be plausible or not, which will then raise the question of how you've decided what's plausible and what's not, but I'll get back to that. So here are those 3 questions for you to dwell on. Maybe try to come up with 2 answers to each question, or again, if you just want to just focus on one question, that's fine. Try not to presuppose anything. Ready? Number 1, why are the laws of the universe what they are? Number 2, where does morality come from? 3, does demonic possession occur? Not only would I like to hear your answers to these questions, but I'm also interested in whether you think the answer is plausible or not, and additionally, and this part is important, why? What route did your brain take in deciding the answer is plausible or not? This second ask is an exercise in epistemology, by the way, which is the study of what we can know and how we can know it. What's the point of thinking about thinking? Well, it's to get people to use their brains for things they don't like to do, which doesn't mean people really don't like to do these things, they just haven't practiced it. But trust me, bro, start thinking about thinking and you'll soon be the smartest person in the room. Not that there's much competition these days if you're an American. So come up with your answers and your justifications and either comment if you're listening on YouTube or drop me an email at thethinkelephant@gmail.com. I really look forward to hearing from you. For Noah's Snark, I'm AJV. Until next time, let the evidence guide you and wonder inspire you.